Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for the complimentary ICMI webinar, 2015 ICMI Contact Center Research Findings, Own the Moment, sponsored by LiveOps. I'm Erica Strother, Community Specialist here at ICMI, and I'll be your moderator today. Before we begin, let's take care of just a few housekeeping items. First, please make sure to disable your pop-up blocker if it's on. You will notice that there are several icons at the bottom of your console window. The first allows you to see the presentation slides, so make sure this one is maximized. Next, you'll see the Q&A icon. We will be hosting a live audience Q&A at the end of this webinar, and you can participate by asking questions at any time during the presentation. All you have to do is type your question into that window and click Submit. Now, if you're experiencing any technical difficulties during the presentation, you can click the question mark icon on the console to access the event help guide. Clicking on the other icons on the console will give you access to speaker bios, more information about our sponsor LiveOps, as well as some information about upcoming ICMI events, resources, and research. And speaking of research, don't miss your chance to voice your opinions in our current research study. If you complete our survey on agent productivity before Monday at midnight, you'll be entered to win an iPad Air 2. You can head over to icmi.com/resources to find that survey. Now, before we get going, I do want to let you know that our presentation will be made available for on-demand viewing following the live event today. You'll receive an email in the next couple of days with instructions for viewing that recorded presentation. You can also download a version of today's slides in PDF form immediately following our presentation. Now, as you're watching this live event today, we really encourage you to be social. You can access your Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn accounts directly through the event console, so please keep the conversations going and share what you learn. And now, it's my pleasure to introduce today's speakers. Speaking on behalf of ICMI is Justin Robbins. Justin is Senior Analyst here at ICMI, and he was the lead practitioner on the research results that we'll be sharing with you today. We're also joined by Nate Brown, Manager of Customer Support for Underwriter Laboratories. And last but not least, Ann Ruxel is here today representing LiveOps. Ann is Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at LiveOps. As I said before, you can learn more about all of our speakers by clicking the speaker icon on our console. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Justin.
Great. Thank you, Erica, and thank you everyone who's able to join us today. So I need to start off today by telling you all about a lesson that I learned a few years ago. It's important for you to know that my wife and I have 3 kids, and all of them are under the age of 5, and we also all love to travel. Personally, I prefer to fly, but my wife prefers to drive. So we did what all good married couples do and compromise when we take our vacations. So we drive everywhere now. A positive side to seeing much of America in this way is that I discovered the old saying really is true. The journey is the reward. The journey is full of amazing moments. There are moments of the unexpected, moments of the familiar, moments to remember. But all too often, however, I find that we're focused on the destination, the outcome, whatever the goal is. And while that's important, we can't afford to miss the moments along the way. We're here today because we're sharing some findings from our recent research that we did in connection with LiveOps. And what we really wanted to do through this program was to uncover the moment of the customer journey that has the greatest impact on a customer's experience with an organization. And the customer journey is a complicated thing. There's complex interactions that in today's age are happening through a variety of channels, millions and millions of times for our own organization. And so we wanted to understand where was that most important moment, the piece that had the greatest impact on a customer's experience with our organization. When we posed this question to our community, we had a great response. We had over 400 members of our community come together and share their thoughts with us. 63% of them were at the manager level or higher. And the top 3 industries that participated in this survey were healthcare, financial services, and telecom. If we were to say that there was a most common contact center, they were customer service, B2C, operating in the public sector. 34% of our participating centers have somewhere between 10 and 49 agents, but then another 21% had 250 or more agents. And so what did we discover? We found out that the initial interaction with a customer service agent, out of all the points along the customer journey, the initial interaction with a customer service agent is perceived as that point of the journey with the greatest impact on the customer experience. So much so, in fact, that 62% of our respondents said that the agent interaction is the most critical touch point of the customer journey. While some of us on this webinar may be thinking, that's great, that's something we knew all along, we've been saying for the longest time that the agent, they're the front line, they're the closest connection to our customer. No matter how much we may say that and how much we recognize through this research that agents truly own that moment, the most important moment. There are some scary things happening that are preventing them from truly doing their job. And when it comes to things like customer engagement, contact center challenges, technology and metrics, there are some major opportunities for today's contact center to improve. In fact, through this research, we discovered that a majority of organizations, 74%, actively acknowledge that they are preventing their front line from providing the best customer experience possible. We're doing something knowingly that's preventing our agent, the most important part of the moment, from being able to effectively do their job. Well, simply that's not sustainable. That's not good enough. And if we look at the importance of the customer experience and the role that that's going to play in our organization, so much so in fact that there's research that indicates by 2020, customer experience will overtake price and product as key brand differentiators. If that's the case, then we really have to find out how to make that moment, the interaction with that customer agent, incredible, amazing, memorable, but most importantly, impactful to that customer who's contacting us. There's some things that we need to do. And so through this research, we've been able to identify 5 ways in which contact centers today could potentially improve the front line's ability to provide the best experience possible in the moment that it matters the most. We identify them as 5 moments: the moments to empower, the moments to inspire, moments to excel, to enlighten, and moments to delight. And so with a little bit of time that I'm going to take with all of you today, I want to share some additional insight into each one of those 5 moments and additional finding from our research. But more importantly, what are some things that you can do in your contact center when we leave this webinar today to make a true difference, a change in impact at that agent level? The first one of the moments that I want to look at are moments to empower. And so while 62% said the agent was the most important part of the journey, another 34% acknowledged that they play a significant role. 96% saying that the agent is a significant role or most important. And so this really does concern me, considering that 75% are knowingly hindering the agent in some way. This is fueling agent disengagement and poor morale, and which in turn, that's just going to perpetuate the problems that we're finding providing customer service to our audiences today. ICMI's recent research revealed that the largest percentage of respondents cited their top challenge as people-related and explicitly cited employee engagement and morale as the challenge. Now, while there are a number of ways to affect engagement and morale, none is more visible or impactful than that agent's supervisor. And so I encourage one thing for us to do as we look at how we can empower our agents, and I look at how we can leverage what we have already on our bench strength. We need to look at the role of the agent supervisor and how are they empowered to coach the agent? How are they empowered to build relationships with that front line on a daily basis to uncover the challenges that your own contact center faces, but more importantly, enable the agent to overcome those challenges proactively? The second type of moment that we really uncovered here were moments to inspire. I recognize, and I'm sure everyone here on the webinar recognizes, that agent empowerment isn't something that can just happen. As much as every single one of us would love to just flip a switch in the next hour or tomorrow morning and say, that's it, our problems are solved, our agents are now empowered to do everything that they could possibly do to create a great customer experience, the fact of the matter is that that's just not possible. It often requires additional time and training, additional responsibilities at that level, or a restructuring of our contact center to ensure that we can provide the support, the guidance, the leadership to make agent empowerment successful. That said, agents are unhappy when they can't help the customer. And ICMI's research time and time again has indicated that happy agents equal happy customers. And if you're worried about the agent taking extra time with the customer, and maybe it's requiring you to increase your headcount, that's one thing we hear first. So our agents could probably provide a better customer experience if we could maybe just let them spend a little bit more time getting to know that customer and maybe diving a little bit deeper into offering the things that are most relevant for them. And so the first thing we think of is, well, if the agents are going to spend more time, then that means I'm going to need more agents to cover the amount of time that we're spending on and the contacts that we're getting. Well, maybe not. One of the first things that you can possibly look at doing is see what efficiencies can you create in your contact center today. And perhaps it's by moving the replicable transaction-based interactions to self-service channels. Moving the basic types of interactions that in reality customers want to be able to serve themselves in those self-service channels anyway. By moving those off of the agents, two things are really going to happen there. First, your customers will be more satisfied because they are able to serve themselves. People want to be able to help themselves, and so it allows them to do that. But more importantly, your agents will become satisfied in their ability to focus on providing great service to those high-value customers that have the greatest needs. And so the question for everyone on this webinar is really, what are we doing today that is disabling our agents from helping our customers? Do we need to give them more time to spend with them? Do we need to provide better metrics? Do we need to provide better tools? What are the roadblocks in the way for us here, now, today? And what can we do to change them? That brings me to this next moment that we really identify, these moments to excel. And the thing that we recognize is as the complexity of customer interactions increases, and as more and more contact centers are adding more and more channels to the mix, the customer journey only gets more complicated. And for us to really empower the front line, for us to really provide this great level of customer experience, we also have to leverage the information that's available to us. And we went out to the audience and asked them, what is important to you? 98% of them said that really if we're to provide this great customer experience, if we're truly wanting to meet these needs, we need real-time information. 98% agree that real-time information is vital to providing a great customer experience. But what concerns me and what worries me for the customers and for the individuals in these organizations is that a fifth of them have no visibility into basic information such as contact history. And so I have to stop and pause for a minute and ask the question, how did we get here? How did we get to this place where 98% of us are saying real-time information is important, but a fifth of us don't have that available to us? One explanation may be the proliferation of new channels in which the agents have to interact with customers today. Our research found that inbound phone calls continue to reign supreme, especially for customer service. But email, chat, and social media, which is used by 2/3 of the organizations surveyed, are all part of increasing use of the alternative channels that customers are leveraging to communicate with brands. Not just that, but our customers aren't sticking to a single channel. And research indicates that at a minimum, customers may be in two, but more often than not, customers are operating 3, 4, or perhaps even more channels in just one type of interaction, one type of experience with our organization. And so if our contact center is using multiple or siloed applications, not only are we having difficulty seeing what the customer interactions may be in a single channel at a time, but the opportunity to understand what that journey, what that experience is like as they move throughout from our website onto social media to email, chat, or a live phone call with the agent. If we don't have insight into that, we're soon going to find ourselves in the laggard column. But most importantly, for that 1/5 that have no visibility today, I'm really concerned about what that could mean for their organizations as we look through the next year, 3, 5 years, as customer experience becomes the key differentiator for brands. The key here is that agents, the front line, that most important moment of the journey, requires the right tools, such as real-time screen pops, access to customer interaction history, and the single agent desktop to be able to act quickly across different channels and address customer needs efficiently. We recognize that the agent going back is now the most important moment of the journey. And we said that we need to empower them, and we can empower them a couple ways, but the majority of us aren't doing it today. The majority of us aren't doing something, and one of the ways that we can possibly empower them is through their supervisors. Another way that we looked at in Moments to Inspire is that we can possibly empower them by moving some of the simple transactional replicable interactions to self-service to allow that agent to focus on that more important piece. But now this next part, the Moments to Excel again, is we have to harness and leverage real-time information. And for the first of us that don't have visibility into it today, we need to look at a way to make that happen because our customers expect it. It's no longer a nice to have, it's now a need to have. And so what can our organizations do to make sure that we have the visibility into providing these customer experiences? One thing became very clear to me and the team that was looking through this research is in addition to these moments to empower, in addition to these moments to excel, in addition to these moments to empower our agents to inspire, it's beginning to be a time in which contact centers are seeing the need to deviate from the traditional stats that they were using to measure and deliver on customer experience. We're beginning to see the best-in-class organizations moving away from what their competitors are doing and embracing, maybe this isn't the best thing to do because everyone else is doing it. Maybe this is the best thing to do because this is what's going to meet the needs of my customers. They're refining their view. They're refining their focus. And in doing such, they're refining the metrics and the measures that they're using to better understand the customer experience. Here's a great example of this. When we ask contact centers about the metrics that they're measuring today, the greatest number, the metric of greatest commonality among our survey respondents was abandonment to queue. 68% of our survey respondents all measure abandonment to queue. Yet when we also asked these contact centers what was their most ineffective metric, believe it or not, top of the list was abandonment to queue. And this uncovers two things for me. One, it uncovers where some contact centers are at on the maturity cycle of using metrics, because abandonment to queue, if we're trying to use that to understand the customer experience, we're going to find that really it doesn't necessarily give us good insight or a picture of what the typical customer experience is even like. And so while abandonment to queue has a purpose, this also shines light to the fact that we have to look at more than one metric for the customer experience. But even above and beyond that, if we're evaluating and saying that abandonment to queue is the most ineffective metric that's in our contact centers today, then we have to ask the question, we have to look to the place, is there a better way? Is there a better metric? Is there a better place for insight? And so to see the contact centers that are shifting away from these historical, traditional types of metrics are perfect examples of how they're evolving. Or even perhaps more directly, how the customer is now affecting the contact center and how the customer is causing us to act differently. And in order for us to be effective in meeting their needs, we as contact centers have to act differently. We have to measure differently to be truly effective. So then the question comes to mind is there just one metric? Is there just one magic metric that will explain the whole customer experience to us? And I'll go back to the point about if we just look at one metric, we don't have that full picture. And really we found that through the findings, that there wasn't necessarily one metric for the customer experience. But I'm going to tell you what, there is a place that you can look that's going to give you some really great actionable insight and that can empower you to provide a really great experience in your contact center if you harness it the right way. And the place I want to go and the metrics I want to look at in particular, starting with our customer satisfaction surveys. And the reason I say that is because companies cited customer satisfaction surveys as both the best metric to manage their own business as well as compare themselves to their competition. However, only 53%, just about half of respondents, despite unanimously organizations saying that customer experience, customer satisfaction is important to them, only 53% have a customer satisfaction survey program in place. And even fewer contact centers are using Net Promoter Score or word of mouth loyalty or share of wallet to measure this. And yet those metrics can hold a gold mine of information as organizations try to better understand what's happening at the customer level, better understand what that experience is like for the customer. Because, ladies and gentlemen on this call, we're in an age now where we don't get to make the decisions. The customer has moved into the driver's seat, and we have to understand how we can best leverage our team, our resources, our tools, our technologies to meet the needs of that customer who is in a world of choices. And so how do we stand out from the rest? Not just where do we collect information to stand out, but we also have to look at how we're using the data that we generate. When we asked organizations how they use data in their contact center, they were split. While many use it for things such as improving operational efficiencies, some even use it to really create consistency in the customer experience and coach and train employees, the majority of them aren't using it for things like customer journey mapping. There was a separate piece of research from ICMI that looked at customer journey mapping and saw that really over the past 2 years, organizations have been investing a significant amount of time and money in understanding what their customer journey is end to end. And I would encourage everyone on this call, if you've never gone through a customer journey mapping exercise, to really take a step back, compile the team together to understand what is that customer experience end to end. Because the reality is no matter what business no matter what vertical you consider yourself to be aligned with, the contact center plays a tremendous part in that customer journey. And so whether you're in retail or utilities, whether you're in the private or the public sector or even nonprofit, the contact center has a tremendous impact on the customer journey, and it is our obligation to own those experiences. In addition, and as we look at the customer experience, again, continue to come to the forefront as a brand differentiator, a majority of organizations do not have a 360-degree view of their customer. So after we go through the customer journey mapping exercise, this is then leveraging technology to say if we're operating in 7 channels, we need to have the same level, the same depth of insight across those 7 channels, and we need to have agents who are empowered to handle those interactions, leaders who are empowered to see those insights and understand what that customer is doing as they move from channel to channel to channel throughout the customer journey. The last piece here, moments to enlighten, is that a majority of organizations are not using the data that's generated in the contact center to inform marketing decisions. I can even think back to a time in my own experience in operating in a contact center of how frustrating it was for an agent to answer the phone and to learn that a marketing campaign had gone out that we weren't aware of, or for the contact center to be improperly staffed because of a news release or something that was broadcast to the world that we were unable to accurately plan, forecast, and prepare for. And while it's easy for the contact center to play the victim, the reality here is that the ownership of sharing the data that's generated, the insight we have, the information of how to impact the experience, it's the obligation of the contact center to share that information to enlighten the rest of the organization about what's happening within the walls of our center. And really the last type of moment here that we uncovered of the 5 moments that I really want to talk about here is we have all of these moments to truly delight our customers. Perhaps, in my opinion, one of the most compelling findings from this recent ICMI research that we did with LiveOps was in regard to customer engagement. Nearly 80% of respondents to our surveys felt that their customers are not extremely engaged with their company. To me, this is alarming as these customers potentially view their relationship with the organization as disposable and could potentially defect at the next best opportunity. I use the example of the coffee cup that's sitting on my desk right now. It's been here for about 26 minutes, and it's probably about room temperature, and I'm willing to take a sip from it. But I'll tell you what, if I had a hot cup of coffee come in right now, I would easily pass that lukewarm cup of coffee off for the hot cup of coffee. So do our customers view us as this lukewarm cup of coffee that right now they're willing to settle for, but the moment a hot cup of coffee comes available, are they going to move to the next best thing? Because it sounds to me like from the results of these findings that that's where we're at. That 80% of us have customers that if the next best thing comes along, they're in a place that, they just might consider it. Here's the good news, though, and here's what we can do to really affect and really to change this. Our research also verified that if contact centers could identify a customer who's having an issue in real time, not near real time, because the reality is most of the metrics that we measure today aren't true real time. They're post-mortem. We're getting information after something happened. Our research discovered if we could, in true real time, identify a customer having an issue and surprise them by making a proactive outreach, that if we were able to do that, it would greatly improve both that one-time customer experience, that moment, as well as the full customer journey. So the challenge for organizations overall then is, how can we make the customer's life easier? How can we, every person on this webinar, respect our customers' time, our resources, and their preferences? Because we can't ignore the rise of social channels. We need to be looking at contact drivers and doing something about them. We need to be having a customer satisfaction program in place, and we should leverage technology that enables us to monitor situations and interactions in real time. This way we can anticipate the customer's next steps and be their hero. We can anticipate what's going to happen next. We can be the expert, and in that moment, we can proactively save their day. So I'm really excited to be joined by both Ann Ruxtall and Nate Brown. And based off of the findings that I just shared, I'm really curious from the two of them on what some of their perspective is based off of what we shared. So if you both don't mind, I have a couple questions that I would love to ask you and have you share your thoughts with everyone on this webinar. And then once we're done, Erica, I'd love to open it up to everyone else that might have some questions for myself and or Nate as well. So I'm going to start with an open question, Ann and Nate, for both of you. Given the findings that I just shared, what piece of insight do each of you think was the most compelling?
Ann, you want that first?
Sure, happy to do that. So thank you, Justin. That was some really enlightening research findings that you just shared. The part that I would say jumped out the most at me is that one stat, that 98% believe real-time information is vital to their organization, but 20% is completely driving blind, i.e. zero visibility. So that for me is like the dichotomy is, absolutely stunning, that, you kind of need to know, especially the agents who are on the front line, they need to be involved, they need to be empowered with the vital real-time information about the customer past history, why they're contacting you, and, without that information, you can't really do your job. So for me, if we can solve that one gap and address some of that, that will be a huge improvement.
Sure. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Nate, how about your thoughts?
Yeah, no, very well said, Ann. And Justin, thank you for this research. This is fantastic stuff, and all the folks at ICMI. So the one moment I just felt like was your drop the mic moment in the presentation of just the stat that really jumps off the page at me was that 74% where we're preventing frontline staff from providing the very best customer experience. It's like, man, why would we be tripping ourselves up in that way? And it was kind of a convicting stat for me, and it's something that I've kind of recognized as a struggle for us in the recent past, and I really feel like I was putting a lot of shackles on the frontline agents and ultimately not giving them the type of environment that would help them to excel and create that best customer experience. And so going back and kind of thinking, why would I do that? What's the root cause of this? I think that it kind of stems back to, as I look at myself and my role as a customer service manager, what does that look like? And So I'm sitting in there, I'm kind of thinking, oh, well, every call needs to look like this, and this is the very best way to service the customer in that situation. And then you pepper that in with the fact that executive management has their interpretation of what great customer service looks like. And a lot of times they think they know customer service, but they have like that one pet peeve statistic, something like abandonment to queue or something like that, or the amount of time that the rep spends on the phone. And they're just like, man, we gotta reduce this and we gotta make this number better. And in their mind, that's what great customer service looks like. And so we create this box for the agents in which it's very difficult for them to be themselves and to ultimately create that experience. So my journey of late has been a lot more about identifying where am I laying booby traps for my people? Where am I creating hurdles? And a lot more focus on how can I recruit these people that we all know they're out there. They just have customer service in their blood. And they know how to make a really memorable engagement. I mean, that's an extremely difficult thing to teach or control or to manipulate agents to do. It's a lot more about bringing those people in that can create that magic moment and then giving them an environment in which that's valued. So for us, instead of letting the metrics come top down to me from executive management or for other people, there's some things that are going to happen. They're whatever hierarchical organization, that's going to be part of the environment. But in most cases, I can really work backwards on that. And I can take my team, I have a small center of people, and we can sit together and say, for us, what metrics are important? What is it that makes a call great? And for us, I mean, we went through this whole process, and me, frontline agents, everybody, we ultimately came to the customer effort score. Like that was for us what we really felt like was what we needed to put emphasis on and think about during the course of our calls to make them great. And we were able, just in a short time, to significantly improve the customer effort score and ultimately get on the same page on what that experience looked like.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Nate, you provided some really great insight, so thank you. And there were probably three things that I'd highlight. First, you make a really great point about making sure we've got the right people. That's a key part. I mean, if the front line is the most important moment, then we better make sure that we're getting the right type of people to fill that position. Talking about your change in metrics, and really understand what gives you that best picture, that best experience is really great. And the third thing is, you're right. We're so often we're our own worst enemy, and more often than not, the root cause of that is just simply, well, this is the way that we've always done things here. And so it really is breaking that mindset, that mold, and being willing to take a risk, being willing to be different. And I really think that the findings that we put through the survey is going to help a lot of us make some really calculated risks as we look to be differentiators in the marketplace from the level of experience that we're providing.
Agreed.
So you mentioned something about metrics, and this actually poses a question that, Anne, I want to ask you specifically. So we uncovered a lot of uncomfortable statistics around both metrics and the tools that contact centers are using, or in some cases, like you said about that 20% aren't using today. So what advice do you have specifically, Anne, for someone who wants to better leverage their tools and metrics?
Well, so metric is, one of those things. If you don't set a goal, you don't measure, you have no idea. Are you going backwards? Are you going forward? What is the scoop here? So in my mind, the metrics, a couple of things, is going above and beyond the classics. If I look at what people are measuring, abandonment rate, first contact resolution, which is probably the highest or the most, Maslow hierarchy, kind of a higher level measurement that I see. But these are classic measurements. It's back in the whole Taylorism, industrial philosophy. You're managing contact center like an assembly line. I think we're way beyond that now. The people who work in contact center, the critical role that they hold, we see the impact, how important the agents are, right? That is the most critical moment in a customer journey. And yet all the metrics that we're measuring is still reflecting the speed of the assembly line, how efficient you are. That's it's not measuring the right thing. So I would say my first impression is we talk about this as an industry, but we haven't gone above and beyond the classic, Taylorism, industrialized measurement of contact center. The thing that really, in my mind, that need to be measured and tracked much more closely are KPIs that align to business metrics. The things that, a marketing, a CMO, a CEO, a CFO will care about. And those are the metrics that align what customer experience management, which is what we do as contact center people, how that aligns with the bottom line. So customer lifetime value, how did the contact center influence the retention rate? Could be renewals, could be upsells, could be cross-sell. What does the NPS look like? Now, there's the silent majority in the middle. There's the net promoters, and there are the distractors, right? So, these key metrics, I'm seeing them kind of used, but it's still, I would say, minority versus, the majority. So it's no wonder, in my mind, that somehow the contact center is still not quite core to the conversation within the C-suite. And you don't have a seat at the table for a reason, because what you're measuring is absolutely the most scientifically driven. That's kind of how I see contact center. These are the most numerically driven discipline in a company. However, you're not aligning that with the company's bottom line. And if you're not doing that, then you're not going to elevate your influence or your visibility. So that's kind of what I see on a metrics perspective.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you really hit the nail on the head there, Ann. And, going back to, I think of the contact centers, there's really three levels. They say three levels of value that contact centers can provide to an organization. That kind of base foundational level is efficiency, and I think that's where so many people get caught up in this, number of defects, manufacturing-based methodologies to manage that, and so we're stuck on that level of efficiency. Some of us, I think, are just starting to hit that second level in which that contact centers provide value, which is customer satisfaction and loyalty. And so I think we're slowly seeing people move there. But really there's a level above that, strategic value. And to me, I think of the companies that truly stand out, the brands that people think of when they talk about best in class. And to me, that's what they've done. They've really leveraged these things to say, let's stop obsessing. We still need to be efficient and effective in our operation, but let's not just be looking down at our feet there. Let's look above and beyond that, and how can we kind of help the overall organization, as you put it really well, and meet those key metrics that your executive level is going to care about and be able to make the connection back to how the contact center helps the greater business.
Yeah, I agree. One of the old sayings that we've always said is that you can't save your way to prosperity. You have to innovate, and today, if I look at customer service agents, the line is so blurred between service and sales. We are all in sales at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's great. So I have one more question before we can open it up to the audience. And this question, both Ann and Nate, curious on your thoughts here. So customer satisfaction. This was ranked as an important priority for organizations, but just about half have a formal program to measure it. Why do you guys think that's the case?
Yeah, and I'll take that. And I'll have to call Ann, the Thor, the god of thunder here, for stealing all my thunder on this one. I think she said it extremely well already, why we see this phenomenon right here. And in my mind, it's the fact that so many executives think they understand customer service, and they give it a lot of lip service. But when it comes down to it, customer service is much more complex, and it is a science. And it's something that people think they understand, and really they don't. And if we're ultimately going to get to that table where we're being strategic, then we really have to help these executives to understand that the customer really is in control of our futures as organizations. And it's our metrics, it's the metrics coming out of the customer service center that is really the best indicator of our future success. And if we can paint that picture and do it in a more compelling manner, then people will start to take notice. But I think history would tell us that customer service centers are generally cost centers, and they're generally not viewed as being a strategic part of the business. Well, now that we're in this age of the customer, we have the opportunity to really change that. The baton has been passed to us to really grab this moment. But as you put in your research, a lot of us are investing money into the concept of the customer journey map, but we're not finding success with it yet in many cases. We're not putting it out there in a way that people can see it, comprehend it, and get the value of it so that they see customer service as the bleeding edge of the sword on how the organization is doing. And I think Ann's got it. I mean, if we do a better job painting that picture and demonstrating the value, then even these executives that are saying, oh, I love customer service and it's so important to me, but at the same time, they're just thinking, man, that's just something that I have to pay all this money to ultimately accommodate for our customers. It'll redirect that thought process. It'll reorient them to see the value and to make it a key seat at the table.
Yeah,
I
great.
100% agree. Yep, absolutely. Just a quick comment. I think part of it is we can't blame the CEO. You absolutely can, right? I mean, if there's no CEO doesn't get this, and then if we as an organization don't prove the point that for every NPS point, and we all want to be 70 on NPS because everybody want to be like Apple and Zappos, right? But the fact of the matter is a lot of people are negative. Okay, if you can demonstrate, and it's actually, there's so much research, including great ICMI research, for every point increasing NPS, it means this much to your bottom line. And we all know the average sales price for most company, whether you're selling retail, merchandise, or you're doing B2B, in our case, technology. I know exactly what 1 point of retention increase means by not losing a customer. When you tie those metrics together, and if the CEO doesn't get it and doesn't empower the contact center people with, surveying tools. I mean, the people like SetMetrics, a whole bunch of survey tools that make this automatic, then shame on us if we don't, kind of take the brass ring and run with it. And for me, CSAT, DSAT, NPS, voice of the customer, they all kind of combine into one. It's like sunshine that disinfects what doesn't work in a company. And it's not just customer service. It's your product, it's your marketing, it's your sales, it's everything. It also makes you feel better because now you have something tangible to work on, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's great. And so, Ann, Nate, I want to thank both of you for sharing some of your thoughts here. I know we're approaching the end of this webinar. Erica, do we have time for a question or two?
Yeah, I think we have time for one question. And I do want to mention before we dive into that if you guys happen to think of other questions or if we don't get a chance to answer a question that you might have submitted, we'll be more than happy to answer those offline following the presentation. So please keep the questions coming. Justin, I want to put you back in the hot seat for a minute. So what would you recommend to other contact center leaders who might be trying to determine their next steps for better empowering their agents?
Yeah, that's a great question, Erica. Honestly, I think it starts with kind of an inventory of where does your center stand today. If you participated in this research survey, take a look at what you said versus kind of what some of the findings were. But even if you didn't, there are some great places, and I always, even when I was a contact center leader, would start at the ICMI website to understand, what was the best in class, what are the things that really matter, and where does my contact center stand in relation to that. To me, I think it really comes down to willing to be honest with yourself about the state of your contact center. It takes kind of to the, some of the points that both Ann and Nate made is it takes having some guts to be willing to stand up for what is right and what should happen to help meet your needs of your customers today. It's not going to be an easy process. It's not going to be an overnight process. But to me, the first step really is doing that inventory of where do you stand on this scale today? Do you say customer satisfaction is important but not have a survey? Well, what are you going to do about that? Do you intentionally know that you're doing things that are preventing your agents from providing the best experience? What are they? Is there something that you can do about it today? Asking those hard questions, being real with yourself, that's where it starts.
Great. Well, you guys, I want to thank you all again. Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Justin. This has been really, really insightful, and I know that I'm very excited to release the full research findings later this month. I am afraid, though, that this is all the time that we have for today. So once again, I want to remind you that if we did not get a chance to answer your question, please feel free to send them through, and we'll be sure to follow up offline. I also want to mention again that you can download a PDF version of these slides immediately following our presentation. And also keep an eye out in your inbox because we will make this presentation available for on-demand viewing. One last thing before we go. I just pushed out a really quick feedback form to you guys. If you don't mind taking just 30 seconds to share your feedback on today's presentation, we would greatly appreciate it. And before we go, I do need to mention that this presentation is copyright 2015 by ICMI. The presentation materials are owned by or copyrighted by ICMI, which is solely responsible for its content, and LiveOps is responsible for their content and opinions. Once again, on behalf of ICMI and our sponsor LiveOps, thank you so much for joining us today.